Alright, so we are back with a more deep dive into Final Fantasy characters. Probably the most famous character. I'd say the face of the entire series. The homie Cloud Strife. We're doing this next. Let's go.
Although in recent years, Square Enix has started to rely on other characters such as Lightning and now Noctis Lucis Calum, it's hard to ignore the profound effect Cloud Strife has had on the Final Fantasy franchise. But his influence extends far beyond that. He was the poster boy for the best-selling character-based video game.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much the face of the entire series.
And he's appeared in some form or another in plenty of other video games and even popular cartoons. Not
really? Adventure Time?
Weapon, the Buster Sword, but also his spiky hair. He's also the character that you requested we cover next in our new Origins series, highlighting just how popular he still is within the fanbase. But what's the story of Cloud Strife? How exactly did he go from being an aspirational kid with an attitude who had dreams of becoming a superhero through to the cold, arrogant man who ended up becoming the leader of a party who saved the world? Well, that's what we're going to be running through today, as we're going to explore the origins of Cloud Strife in some pretty granular detail. And by the end, I think you'll hopefully agree that Cloud has a pretty tough time of it. As a quick reminder before we begin though, if you enjoy what we do, please be sure to subscribe to Final Fantasy Union to make sure you get notified when we publish new content. Also, be sure to throw in the comment section who you'd like us to cover in our next Origins video. So, Cloud Strife was born in the small village of Nibelheim on the 11th of August 1986 during the Mute era. However, soon after his birth...
Wait, Nibelheim. Isn't that the same village that Sephiroth, basically destroyed?
Father disappeared and was presumed dead, and as a result, he was raised solely by his mother. During his childhood, Cloud struggled to connect with the other children in the village, and he often felt quite isolated. However, it wasn't through a lack of effort. He wanted to join in, but the other kids who would hang out in a group that included Tifa Lockhart would actively choose to exclude Cloud from their activities.
Damn.
As a result, he started to develop a superiority complex, and over time, he became convinced that the other children weren't worth his time. He felt they were childish and immature, often laughing at silly jokes, that they were essentially inferior. But despite this, he couldn't completely shake the want to belong. Years later, after Tifa's mother died, she became convinced that she would be able to find her somewhere in Mount Nibel. Trekking with the same group of children that often excluded Cloud, they headed for the mountain, but Cloud decided to follow on behind. However, as the rest of the group gradually abandoned Tifa due to the perils that they might encounter on the mountain, Cloud continued to try and catch up with her, and when he finally did, she tripped, causing them to both fall. After finding the two children passed out, Tifa's father became convinced that it was all Cloud's idea and blamed him for the fact that she had almost died. To compound this, Tifa's father also banned Cloud from even approaching her in the future.
Oh, she was in a coma?
Something that hit quite hard for Cloud, who at the time was only 9 years old. The short-term effect was that it shook his bullish self-confidence. Perhaps he wasn't superior to the other kids after all. If he was stronger, he would have been able to save Tifa from harm, and none of this would have ever happened. The guilt ate away at Cloud, and over the next few years he gradually lost control of himself, becoming more and more angry about his perceived weaknesses.
Damn.
He constantly got into fights with other kids in the village, but 5 years later, he felt like he might have found
Bro, it's too early for an ad. Come on.
Focus he needed.
The new best way to make money online that nobody's talking about is something you've never heard of before. It's you.
Having heard about the heroic exploits of a first-class soldier named Sephiroth, who was at that time fighting in the Wutai War, he was sure that joining Soldier would help him to become stronger. He could become a hero and stop bad things from happening to the people he cared about. Before leaving the village, he told Tifa of his grand plans at the water tower, and she made him promise that if
I can't remember this from the remake.
She needed rescuing, that he would come to her aid. True to his word, the next spring, Cloud left Nibelheim with the hope of joining Soldier. However, despite enlisting and displaying plenty of confidence in himself, he didn't make the cut and was instead assigned to the regular Shinra infantry. A year into his service,
that's where you met Zack.
But while still only 14 years old, Cloud was
14?
to protect Professor Raleigh with two other grunts. She was a researcher who worked for Shinra on the Soldier project and was a prime target for the first iteration of the anti-Shinra organization called Avalanche. During the mission, Avalanche attacked, and after some initial skirmishes, Cloud chose to stand his ground and fight against increasing odds so that his two comrades could escape with Professor Raleigh. However, despite managing to fight his way back due to the assistance of the Turks, he witnessed the two other infantrymen perish at the hands of death magic, which was cast by a raven. Avalanche then managed to escape with Professor Raleigh on the train, but as he was leaving, Cloud jumped on to try and mount a rescue attempt by himself. Despite fighting his way through to where she was being held, he was ultimately outnumbered and defeated though. Saved again by the Turks, Cloud escaped with Professor Raleigh, but Avalanche caught up to him again and Cloud was defeated by a raven. With the situation getting more and more dire, Cloud motivated himself to do better by proclaiming that if he can't save one person's life, then he definitely doesn't belong in Soldier. In the fight that followed, Cloud acted on instinct and showed extraordinary skill, striking down two Avalanche soldiers with a single blow.
Popping
As
the
a result,
LB3,
he was
okay.
able to successfully protect Professor Raleigh from harm. Mere months later, following his 15th birthday, Cloud was sent on a mission to Nibelheim alongside first-class soldier Zack Fair and Seng, a member of the Turks.
Okay.
However, en route, their helicopter was shot down.
That's how they
and
met.
walked the rest of the way. It was during this time that Cloud and Zack started to become friends, initially bonding over the fact that they were both country boys. Upon arriving at the outskirts of Nibelheim, they found plenty of evidence that Genesis was conducting activities inside an abandoned Mako excavation test site. Keen to learn more, Zack infiltrated the warehouse and found Genesis threatening Dr. Hollander, as he was becoming increasingly antagonized by the lack of success in treating his degradation. Zack freed Hollander, and Cloud, who had followed Zack inside the warehouse, attempted to restrain him for questioning. However, he was thrown to the ground and Hollander escaped. Zack then held off Genesis so that Cloud could also get free from the warehouse. After meeting up with Seng outside, Cloud then chased Hollander into Nibelheim, but upon reaching the town, both he and Seng were attacked and defeated by Angel Copies, who was ultimately rescued by Zack. After this encounter, Cloud made his way back to Midgard and continued to perform his duties as a Shimmer infantryman, being called into action a year later when Genesis attacked Junin. However, despite meeting up with Zack, due to suffering from nausea from the helicopter ride, he wasn't able to provide any assistance. Later that month, Cloud was selected to go on a mission with Zack and Sephiroth to Nibelheim, where they were to investigate the Mako reactor. And on the way, Cloud again suffered from motion sickness. When they arrived at the village, Sephiroth allowed Cloud to visit the friends and family that he wanted, but Cloud chose to hide his identity as he was embarrassed by his failure to join Soldier. The next day, they headed up Mount Nebel with Tifa Lockhart as their guide, and upon arriving at the Mako reactor, Cloud was chosen to stand guard, as Zack and Sephiroth headed inside. However, Genesis crashed the party and Cloud, while trying to protect Tifa, was incapacitated.
Oh, that's where
After
Genesis
recovering,
told Sephiroth the
Cloud
truth.
lamented the fact he couldn't do more, but now with some new perspective after witnessing the shocking conversation with Sephiroth and Genesis, Zack warned him off joining Soldier. To change the subject, Zack chose to ask Cloud if he knew Tifa, and it got him thinking. He emailed Zack the next day asking if he'd come and try his mother's cooking, as he wanted to go home, but he felt it would be uncomfortable if he went by himself. Cloud ultimately did end up going by himself though, and although he couldn't remember the conversation fully, he remembered they spoke about goals and Cloud's inability to cook, but because Zack wasn't there, he also couldn't bring it upon himself to tell her that he hadn't made it into Soldier. Soon after returning from the Nibelheim reactor, Sephiroth locked himself in the Shimmer mansion, and upon learning his origins, he attacked the village in a fit of rage. Cloud sent an email to Zack to ask for help, but it came too late, and as he tried to stop Sephiroth, he was defeated. Not one to be deterred, Cloud mustered up the strength to avenge his village. He headed for the reactor, and inside, he saw both Zack and Tifa wounded. Cloud
Bro, seeing these two perspectives.
That's when the Ford can become airborne. Grab it with Swiffer Sweeper. The extra thick, heavy-duty cloths trap all kinds of dust, dirt, and hair on contact. See you, dust. And Swiffer partners with the American Lung Association to support clean air.
Pizza.
once again acted on instinct. He grabbed Zack's Buster Sword, caught Sephiroth by surprise, and stabbed him while lamenting the loss of his mother, Tifa, and his town. Feeling as though Sephiroth had been sufficiently dealt with, Cloud decided to go back to tend to Tifa and to keep the promise he had made to her earlier. However, Sephiroth wasn't finished. He wanted to leave with Genova's decapitated head.
Right.
Zack urged Cloud to kill Sephiroth, so he left Tifa and ran after his former idol. But before he could do anything, Sephiroth stabbed him through the chest and hoisted him up into the air. Cloud, though, as he had exhibited before, was not just an ordinary Shinra infantryman. He had something special inside him that came out in times of desperation. And this time, he surprised Sephiroth by shimmying down the Masamune,
The LB3.
hustling him and tossing him into the depths of the Mako reactor. Due to the injuries he sustained though, Cloud was unable to move, and soon after, Professor Hojo arrived and he gathered up anyone and everyone who was still alive in both the reactor and the village for his next experiment, which would be based around the reunion theory. Subjects would be exposed to Mako in a similar way to those inducted into Soldier, and they were also injected with Sephiroth cells. The only person to escape this horrible fate was Tifa, who was rescued by her mentor Zangan before Hojo arrived. While other inhabitants of Nibelheim became Sephiroth clones devoted to Jenova and Sephiroth, Zack and Cloud were deemed failed experiments by Hojo. Zack resisted his manipulations due to being part of Soldier, while Cloud went too far the other way and was so weak he developed Mako poisoning. Because of this, neither of them were given numbered tattoos and were held in the Shinra mansion for years until they were able to escape thanks to the efforts of Lazar de Sericus. Once they had escaped, due to his clothes being soaked in Mako, Zack gave Cloud a soldier uniform to wear. But in the time that followed, Cloud struggled to recover from the extreme Mako exposure.
Jeez.
Hoping his friend would improve though, Zack protected the two of them from Shinra for over a year. But they were eventually caught and Shinra forces defeated and killed Zack, choosing to ignore Cloud due to his lack of mobility and general lack of threat. After they left, Cloud managed to drag himself over to Zack, his friend, who entrusted the Buster Sword to him and told him that he would be his living legacy, saying, "My honor, my dreams, they're yours now." It was something that Cloud, based on all the trauma he had been through, took quite literally. It meant that all the experiences they had shared, all the memories
That's
that
how
he
it
had
happened.
crafted about his life, they became Cloud's experiences and Cloud's memories alone. Within his subconscious, Cloud became Zack, and upon arriving at Midgar, he attempted to present himself as a former first-class soldier who was a mercenary for hire, Zack's plan for once he arrived in Midgar. But Cloud was still struggling from everything that had happened. He found himself in the Sector 7 train station where he was stumbled upon by Tifa, his old friend from Nibelheim. Seeing her jogged Cloud's memory somewhat, but Tifa was very concerned. She felt that while there was some consistency with what Cloud was saying, there were things he didn't know that he should have known and things that he did know that he shouldn't have. However, instead of correcting these lapses and discussing with him, Tifa decided to just keep an eye on Cloud, and to help make him stick around, she requested that he join the new incarnation of Avalanche, which was led by Barrett Wallace. As part of his new role, Cloud, who claimed that he was only interested in helping Avalanche for the money, took part in
So that's how 7 started.
on the Sector 1 reactor. However, after a somewhat successful follow-up attack on the Sector 5 reactor, Cloud was separated from Tifa and Barrett, falling from the upper plate into a church down below.
That's where you met
He officially
Aerith,
met Aerith Gainsborough, having run into her before, of course, during his escape from the Sector 1 reactor. But before he could become too well acquainted, they were joined by Reno, a member of the Turks. He came accompanied by numerous Shinra infantrymen with the objective of capturing Aerith, but Aerith asked Cloud to be her bodyguard in exchange for taking him on a date, and they managed to escape.
Yep.
After taking Aerith to safety, Cloud attempted to make his way back to the Sector 7 Suns to regroup with Barrett and Tifa, but they learnt of Shinra's horrific plans to drop the Sector 7 plate in order to destroy Avalanche. They were collectively able to mobilize quickly to try and stop Shinra, but in the aftermath, Aerith was captured as she took Marlene, Barrett's daughter, to safety. Knowing what Aerith did to save Marlene, the group decided to assault the Shinra headquarters to try and rescue her. And they were ultimately successful, but during the mission, Cloud encountered things that would start to shake his weak psyche even more. He would come face to face with the headless remains of Jenova that was moved there after the Nibelheim incident, and following the death of President Shinra, he would become convinced that Sephiroth was still alive due to the appearance of the Masamune. After the party regrouped at the village of Calm, Cloud's fractured memory would become even more apparent as he incorrectly retold the events surrounding the Nibelheim incident. Again, despite knowing what he said to be incorrect, Tifa chose to stay silent.
Huh?
Blue moon. One of a kind. Every time.
Cloud then headed off with the group in search of Sephiroth, a quest which saw them visit numerous towns and villages. However, it's only once their journey took them to Nibelheim that Cloud once again became confused. Despite him seeing the town in flames years before, as part of Hojo's cover-up, it was now completely rebuilt, leading Cloud to question whether it even happened in the first place.
Yeah, I was about to say,
The
didn't
villagers
Sephiroth
who had
destroy?
been hired by Shimmer as part of the cover-up also even denied knowing Cloud. And within the basement of the Shimmer mansion, Cloud was confronted by Genova, who under the control of Sephiroth asked Cloud to take part in the reunion, but also proceeded to guide him north of Mount Nibel. However, it wouldn't be until later, at the Temple of the Ancients, where Sephiroth, again via the proxy of Genova, would start to exert his influence over Cloud. Following a brief conversation where Cloud revealed his overarching plan, Cloud lost his mind and started to become delirious, laughing hysterically, recanting words like black materia and meteor, and wrestling with his mind about both his identity but also his memory. Cloud then convinced the party to take the black materia despite the difficulty involved. His rationale to the party was that it was the only way to prevent Sephiroth from obtaining it, as he had lots of flunkies who would throw their lives away to get it for him. But soon after solving the puzzle of the Temple of the Ancients, Cloud again lost his self-control and gave the black materia straight to Genova. In the aftermath, Aerith tried to console a horrified Cloud, but he became enraged and lashed out at Aerith, which led to the rest of the party getting involved, knocking him unconscious. It
Damn.
was here that Cloud encountered a strange dream, where Aerith told him of her plan to stop Sephiroth and suggested that Cloud take care of himself so that he would hopefully avoid having a breakdown. And after awaking, Cloud attempted to take her advice. He couldn't trust himself to stay in control and said he wanted to take a break. But the group refused to let him sit on the sidelines, and Barrett decided to offer some tough love. He blamed Cloud for everything that had happened, called him a jackass for running away from his problems, and suggested he was scared to find out more about himself. Tifa, on the other hand, was a little bit softer, encouraging him to settle his score with Sephiroth. Ultimately, though, their approach worked, as Cloud decided to not be afraid of what might happen. He chose to pursue Aerith to the Forgotten Capital. Upon arriving, they found Aerith praying at an altar. But despite their earlier promise to watch over Cloud closely to make sure he didn't lose control, they allowed him to approach Aerith alone. And as he got closer, his worst fears came true and he lost control again. Fortunately, just before striking Aerith down, calls from both Barrett and Tifa broke the hold and he came to his senses. Perhaps anticipating this, Genova, manifesting a Sephiroth, then descended on the altar, killing Aerith in front of Cloud's eyes. After putting Aerith to rest, Cloud again had serious doubts about his own mental state, telling the party that he was afraid of himself, that there was part of him that he just didn't understand, and that he'd realised that there was something inside of him, a person who wasn't him. This time, Barrett also had reservations about whether Cloud should carry on with his quest against Sephiroth, but Cloud managed to convince himself that he could recover the black materia before Sephiroth used it. They therefore headed to the northern crater, where the reunion was taking place, and upon defeating Genova's death, they obtained the black materia. This time, Cloud entrusted it to someone else in the party before he went forward to try and defeat the real Sephiroth. However, as he approached, Sephiroth attempted to break Cloud's resolve once again. This time, he tried to convince Cloud that his memories weren't his own by projecting a somewhat truthful illusion of the real events that led up to the Nibelheim incident. He showed Zack Fair taking his rightful place instead of Cloud, but he also made it seem as though Cloud wasn't there at all. He then told Cloud that he was an incomplete Sephiroth clone, constructed piece by piece in the aftermath of the Nibelheim incident. Cloud, though, was unshaken by Sephiroth's words. He had gained a stern resolve, but it was actually Tifa's lack of confidence that made him start to question what he knew, and again, he was sent on a downward spiral. As he dug deeper and deeper, he realised that although he could remember some things, he couldn't remember the crucial parts, like when and how did he actually join Soldier. With Cloud's resolve broken once again, he became convinced that he was nothing more than a clone, a servant of Sephiroth, and after apologising to the party for not being the real Cloud, he then proceeded to give the black materia straight to Sephiroth and fell into the lifestream. A week later, Cloud washed up on the shore of Mediel. He was again suffering from some extreme
this kid is going through it.
and returned to the same state he had been when travelling with Zack just a year before. This time, it was Tifa who stayed to care for him, and she remained with him when Ultimate Weapon attacked the village. As he tried to get them both to safety, the two of them fell into the livestream, and it was here that we learnt the truth about Cloud's past, as together with Tifa, he pieced together his memories. It was a process that helped to surface Cloud's real identity. He remembered that although he had left the village looking to join Soldier, he didn't ever make it.
Right.
He confessed that he had managed to create an illusion of himself based on the life of Zack.
Right.
Securing the knowledge that he wasn't a clone and that his memories were now his own, Cloud resolved once again to stop Sephiroth and save the planet from Meteor. Their first attempt saw them try to use huge materia, but once this failed, they decided to attack Sephiroth head-on in the northern crater. Cloud descended to the planet's core with his friends, where after defeating the final form of Genova, they were able to defeat Sephiroth's godlike form. However, Cloud would have one final duel, as Sephiroth attempted to take control of Cloud's mind once again.
Didn't work.
This time, however, Cloud was able to resist Sephiroth and was able to rejoin his friends to watch Holy and the livestream stop Meteor. But as this was happening, Cloud was infected by Geostigma, a plague created by Sephiroth that he seeded out through the livestream. But Cloud chose to conceal this from his friends, and he started to try and build a new life with Tifa in a new city formed outside Midgar called Edge. As part of this new life, he set up a business called Strife Delivery Service, and he also ended up looking after Marlene.
Wait, that's when
Denzel,
Advent started?
a child they found who had also been infected by Geostigma. However, despite this secure setting, Cloud started to become consumed by guilt over the deaths of Aerith and Zack. He started to believe that he could have prevented them and chose to move away from Tifa to give himself space. This spiraled further, and Cloud ultimately became depressed, often avoiding calls from his friends. However, after receiving a call from Tifa about a job from the Turks, he agreed to meet with Reno. He then discovered that Rufus was still alive, having survived the assault from Diamond Weapon. Rufus had also contracted Geostigma and was looking to form an alliance to fight the mysterious trio of men, the manifestations of Sephiroth's will, who had also attacked Cloud. However, when they spoke about rebuilding Shinra, Cloud declined their offer. But Cloud's Geostigma was worsening, and it caused him to collapse. But after learning that Marlene and Denzel had been kidnapped by Kadaj, Loz and Yazoo, he decided to try and rescue them, despite his weakened state. And after confronting them in the Forgotten Capital, he was bested, fortunately saved by Vincent Valentine. Back in Edge, Kadaj summoned Bahamut Sin to attack the city, and after ensuring that Marlene and Denzel were safe, Cloud, with the help of his old friends, was able to defeat the summon. He then squared off against Loz and Yazoo, destroying both of their weapons before confronting Kadaj in Aerith's church, where his Geostigma was cured by water sprouting from the flower bed.
Wow,
Now back
okay.
to full strength, Cloud
That
was
easy?
able to defeat Kadaj, but not before he was able to absorb Genova's remains, bringing back Sephiroth once again. The two dueled, but Sephiroth was able to best Cloud, often toying with him. However, as Sephiroth tried to manipulate Cloud's mind once again, he became inspired by thoughts of his friends, living and dead, and as he had displayed many times in the past, he was able to summon incredible strength and overwhelm Sephiroth, defeating him once again.
Yep, the
As
limit
things
break.
returned to normality, Cloud felt much happier in the knowledge that Aerith and Zack were watching over him, and he continued with his delivery service, while other members of his original party found their own causes to fight for. He did, however, take part in the ground assault on Midgar as Vincent Valentine and the World Regenesis organization fought against Deep Ground. Toward the start of the conflict, Cloud squared off against Rosa the Crimson, but as they both appeared later in separate scenes, it suggested that their duel ended in a tie. Towards the end of Dirge Cerberus, Cloud was seen cheering for Vincent to succeed in his battle against Omega Weapon, and we learned that after the battle, Cloud spent time searching for Vincent, trying to give his friends news that he was safe. But that was the last we heard of this iconic hero from within the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. I think we can all agree that Cloud's story is one that's actually pretty harsh. He suffered numerous instances
Bro, the
of
mental
trauma and hardship throughout his life, but was still able to fight through and ultimately save the world on numerous occasions. I think that's why he resonates with quite a few people.
Yeah.
He's often described as weak throughout the story, but that weakness became the basis for his strength, and after lots of support from his friends, both living and dead, he was able to find his purpose. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this origin story. It was certainly longer than the previous one where we looked at Sephiroth. Let us know in the comments below what you thought about it, and please feel free to suggest the next character you'd like us to take a deep dive into. Also, as a reminder, If you enjoy our content, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. And if you really enjoy what we do, why not become a Patreon supporter and help us grow? Not only do you get your name at the end of videos like these awesome folks, but you can also get to choose what videos we make. Alright guys, thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the lore of Final Fantasy VII. This is Daryl signing out. I'll see you next time for more Final Fantasy videos.
Nice. Bro, like I was saying, bro, the mental abuse, bro, the fragmented memories, not knowing who you are, bro. Cloud went through it, and I didn't know any of this. Holy shit, bro. Damn. So because it seems like with the remake they didn't kill Zack or Aerith. So like it's gonna be really interesting to see how the next games stack up. Like, and also, I believe what Cloud. I can't even keep count of how many times this kid fell into the live stream, but it seems like the live stream, at least in this iteration of Final Fantasy, is an actual place you can fall into, whereas in 14 it's almost like, no, I'm thinking of two different names, my mistake. I'm thinking of the Ethereal Sea and the live stream. Yeah, two different things. Okay, never mind, forget that, scratch it. Wow though, man. I mean, what can you say, man? Bro, just that torment. I don't know how he... Okay, so... Now again, I don't know. I might do Lightning's one next. I may just do it in order like that. It doesn't... I don't believe these have a specific order in which they need to stack up. Okay, yeah, so they have one for pretty much every main character. Okay. Rufus, Luffy, Aerith, okay, alright, Tifa, Vincent. Yep. Guys, if you guys enjoyed this, you already know what to do. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Bro, Cloud really went through it. Huh. So... like, I mean, just that fact of not knowing who you are, what your true identity is, you taking the identity of someone else, for all that confusion, and yet he still pushed past it. I can see why, you know, he's like the main figure of the franchise. Nevertheless, great origin video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.